Welcome to the Deepak Saini Show.
He said he gon' huff and puff and blow my mind up. You meet the island girl, she might dirty wine up.
Welcome to the Deepak Saini Show. I'd like to thank J23 for the intro music. You can find a link to her music in the show description. My guest today is Dr. Meagan Grega. Meagan is a co-founder and chief medical officer of Kellen Foundation. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I didn't ask you that one earlier.
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Kellen Foundation is a nonprofit dedicated to making the healthy choice the easy choice in the community. She's a family doc who's also board certified in lifestyle medicine. Meagan, welcome to the Deepak Saini Show.
Deepak, thank you so much. I really appreciate the invite. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
As am I. I know it took a little bit of time for us and some vacations and this and that, but we finally connected to record this. So I'm glad to have you on here. So I always like to start off with, how did you get into doing what you're doing? Go as far back as you want. Did you always want to be a doctor of some sort, or like how give us the backstory?
That's a great question, because actually I did not always think about being a doctor. What I wanted to be was a healer. Like when I was a little girl, I watched Little House on the Prairie, which I don't know if you ever watched that, but there was like this old family doc who would go out and on the buggy to go see families. And, that was kind of my vision of being somebody who was a part of a community. And like he was a doctor. I also kind of really liked, my background is Celtic. And so my family comes from Wales, not my family, like my immediate family, but kind of back in my ancestry. And so I always liked the concept of the shaman, the person in the tribe that helps people live their best life. They come to them for problems, but also if they're sick, tries to keep you healthy. So this was kind of my idea, back in the 80s when I was trying to decide what I wanted to be. And as you can imagine, going to my high school guidance counselor and being like, I want to be a healer, I want to be a shaman. She was like, maybe medical school, would that be a good idea? So that's kind of where we ended up.
They probably didn't know what that was.
I don't think so. I think she was like, who is this crazy woman coming and talking to me? But it did seem to me that medicine was the closest thing to what I wanted to be for a community. And family medicine was really the most kind of modern equivalent that I could come up with as far as being that shaman healer person, because docs take care of people from all the way through death. They're longitudinal families. And I said, okay, this is exactly what I want to do. So I went to the University of Pennsylvania for medical school, which is a great school, learned tons and tons of things there. But when I was there, they didn't even have actually a family medicine department. And so I looked around other places and did a great residency program and said, okay, family medicine is great. I went into the military for a while. I was actually a medical corps physician for many years in the Navy, and was doing my family doc thing there. And then I got out to become a civilian medicine person. And I started to really see that, yes, being a family doc is wonderful. You do get to have relationships with your patients, and you do get to see them over time. But the current medical system is very focused on productivity. How quickly can you get people in and out of your office, 15-minute visits. And over the course of my career to that point, I saw that I wasn't really having the impact that I was hoping to have on my patients. I didn't really see as much of a improvement, like return to health. It's more that we were managing their chronic diseases, slowing down the transitions to more diabetes medications, or, your second heart bypass, but not really getting people back to feeling like they had a lot of health and vitality. And at that time, I was getting very frustrated because I was like, well, I'm doing all the things that evidence-based medicine tells you to do as far as screening and what medications to use, but my patients really aren't getting better. And I started seeing how like life expectancy in the United States was plateauing and has now gone down. And I was frustrated. I was like, what is it that we could do to actually have, health is not just not being sick. Health is a whole lot more than that. It's having a complete, enjoyment of your life, being able to do the things you want to do, being able to be independent, have a purpose, all sorts of stuff like that. So I started looking into the literature that I really hadn't learned much about in medical school, about where were the places in the world where people live the longest, healthiest, happiest lives. And that research, kind of diving back into the medical literature, showed me things that I had never been taught in medical school and in residency, like things like Dr. Dean Ornish's work and Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, T. Colin Campbell, Neil Barnard, a bunch of docs out there that I had not heard of. And I realized that this new specialty that was being formed called lifestyle medicine was really kind of what I'm passionate about. And so though I am still a family doc, I'm still passionate about taking care of patients longitudinally and in families. Lifestyle medicine is where I've really begun over the last probably about almost 20 years now, focusing my career on that way of not only preventing disease, but also treating, and if used intensively enough, even kind of reversing a lot of the chronic diseases that we have in our society.
Awesome. Okay, so much to unpack in just that little one there. So first off, I think if I by the time at the time of this recording, this is like episode 50-ish, something like that of the show. I think that's the first Little House on the Prairie reference by any guest. So
Awesome.
congratulations for that. So awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I did see in your bio. I didn't read it up front, but I did see in your bio about the Navy. Quick question. So you said family medicine. So would that be like Navy families on base, or were you like overseas, like in deployment? If you could just clarify that.
Yeah. Well, so I ended up being on active duty during some of the, kind of unfortunate things that happened, like 9/11 and the Afghanistan war and all those types of issues that happened kind of in the early 2000s. And I ended up staying stateside, though I was potentially could have been sent on the USNS Comfort because that's the hospital shift I was attached to. But I was one of the docs that they had to stay back to take care of people stateside. So yes, families, dependents, retirees, but also our active fighting forces, the Marines, the Navy personnel that were on our base. So kind of the full gamut of people that of that family medicine does, which is why I think the military needs a lot of family docs, because we can take care of kids, we can take care of adult age people that are the fighting forces, and we can also take care of the retirees.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that. And then the other thing you said too, I think you didn't use these words; these are my words, but I think you would agree. I think we don't have healthcare. We have disease management. We have a disease management system. And I live up here in Canada, so we have different systems of how they're structured, but essentially it's the same thing, right? The curriculum is basically the same that doctors go through, so it's very similar in that. So I just wanted to point that as well. So I love that the lifestyle medicine, and again, Meagan, we for the audience, we just met today as a time recording. We've never talked before, so Meagan doesn't know a lot about me either. I have a public stated goal to be a Centenarian plus. So I'm gonna.
Like that,
and that's not with tubes and in a hospice or anything like that. That's living my life to the fullest, which
yes.
I'm sure we're gonna.
You don't want that marginal decade that we talk about in medicine, where those last 10 years you're alive.
I'm gonna die fast at 110. That's the plan. So.
Well, I hope to be there with you. I mean, I hope I make it too. I always told my kids, and I mean, I'm 52 now, so I'm, I don't want to say that I'm halfway there or anything, but I used to tell my kids when I was probably in my 30s, I'm like, I'm going to live to 102. And they're like, that's crazy. I'm like, no, it's totally possible. That is like a normal.
Absolutely. And technology is just getting better and just getting better. So, so maybe you kind of alluded to it a bit in your first answer in your background, but maybe just let's dive in a little bit more. Like, what is lifestyle medicine?
So lifestyle medicine, relatively new specialty. I feel like people have been talking about it for decades, but it became, at least in the United States, something that is a actual board certified specialty. Became that in 2017, but the first American College of Lifestyle Medicine meeting was in 2004. So something that's relatively recent, but stuff that's been going on in the research for a while. And what lifestyle medicine focuses on is, first of all, evidence-based lifestyle behaviors that can impact your risk of developing a chronic disease and can also help you manage and improve that chronic disease if you happen to get one. So the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine have to do with nutrition, which would be a predominantly whole food, plant-based eating pattern. Does not have to be vegan. And I don't like the word vegan really, because vegan just says what you're not eating. It doesn't say what you are eating. If you're vegan, you're not eating animal products, but you could just as easily be drinking soda and eating potato chips. And that's not necessary.
We don't need to go down this path, but like many people, a vegan, for many people, a vegan diet is actually a terrible diet because junk food. Most junk food is actually vegan.
Yeah. I
No,
know
but
it's
anyway,
crazy
I
when you
digress.
look,
I digress. I interrupted
but
you.
I agree with you. We are on the same page. I agree. So I like the concepts whole food, plant predominant, because that says what you are eating. And what I encourage my patients and my people who are in my community cohorts is eat as much as possible whole plant foods. If you use a little bit of, a little bit of meat products here and there, or animal products here and there, use them as condiments, as flavoring. Like that should not be the center of the plate. The center of the plate should be, the majority of things should be rainbow of colors, unprocessed or minimally processed whole plant foods. That's your A answer as far as what your nutrition would be to support optimal health. So one of the pillars of lifestyle medicine is nutrition, that whole food, plant predominant eating pattern. And then number 2 is physical activity. Number 3 is getting restorative sleep, so prioritizing your sleep time. Number 4 is healthy stress management. We all have many different ways to manage stress, but not all of them are healthy. So healthy stress management strategies. Number 5 would be focusing.
I like that. Just let me interject.
You go ahead.
I say this all the time to my audiences, as not only the podcast, but my in my courses and things like that as well. While there's amazing, awesome Netflix movies and TV shows out there, parking yourself in front of the couch for hours, that's not stress management.
No.
So anyway,
No.
I like to make that joke.
I agree with you, because think about all the pillars that messes up. It probably messes up your sleep. It messes up your physical activity.
Absolutely.
Probably might mess up your social connection. I don't know. So that's number 5, which is supportive, nurturing supportive social connections. And there's a great book that came out recently called The Good Life, which has to do with Dr. Robert Waldinger, who's the chief investigator he's the current, I should say, chief investigator of the Harvard study on health and happiness, which is the longest study on health and happiness, basically in the United States. And that study looks at, and it's been going on since the early, I can't remember if it started in the 30s or 1930s or so, but it's been going on almost 100 years. And it shows that the strength of our social connections is one of the key indicators about how long we live, but more importantly, how happily and how vital our lives are as we go. So that's number 5 as far as the pillars of lifestyle medicine. And number 6 is avoidance of risky substances and exposure. So tobacco, smoking, excessive alcohol, other substances that might be of abuse. Those are the things that we want to avoid. So those are the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine to help you live the longest, healthiest, happiest life.
Absolutely. And then I'll just make this a little plug, just to go off on the side for a second. For those of you who've been following the podcast for a long time, you will have known last year I ran a summit, and many of Dr. Meagan's colleagues, a number of them were part of the summit, and they're also lifestyle medicine docs. So some of this is sounding familiar. It's important, and I think I wish all doctors were lifestyle medicine doctors.
Me too. I hope that's the transition that maybe we're going into.
Because, I hope so.
Yeah, because I'll tell you something positive in the United States, at least, is that we have over 300 residency programs now that are integrating and implementing the lifestyle medicine residency curriculum. So the American College of Lifestyle Medicine with Dr. Brenda Ray, and in conjunction with the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine, created this actual residency curriculum to deal with the factor to kind of address that most physicians are not taught lifestyle medicine concepts in residency or in medical school. So there's this whole curriculum that can be kind of plug and play into people's residency programs. And we started it in 2018 was the first year. 2019 was maybe the first rollout. But now by 2024, we've got over 300 programs. So that's
amazing. That's a step in the right direction. Meagan, let me ask you this question. When you went to medical school and or during your residency, let's just isolate nutrition. How much nutrition education did you get?
Almost none. And I went to a really good medical school. I mean, the Penn is great. And they taught me a lot of really good things, but nutrition was not one of them. So we had a nutrition course where the majority of what I learned had to do with rickets and scurvy and pellagra, which are all vitamin deficiency diseases that I have never seen in the United States as a practicing physician ever, and didn't learn anything about how nutrition impacts diabetes and heart disease, other than the fact of back then nutrition and diabetes was all no carbs. And we know that that's kind of carbs are not all created equal. That was not something that we really were taught either. So I did not have much at all. I really can't remember how many hours it was in medical school, but it wasn't much. And it didn't really apply to the chronic diseases that I see now as a practicing physician. And in residency, it was not something that we talked about. I mean, with hypertension, we talk about the DASH diet, or but not something that was a big focus like what I do now with my residents and my medical students that I teach, where we do like culinary medicine classes and lifestyle medicine journal clubs, and we talk about
Right.
all the ways that what you eat impacts how long and how well you live.
Yeah, I appreciate you answering the question. I didn't think that would even come up, but I'll just share this with you. Like I 8-9 years ago started, whenever I would come to a doctor, whether it be locally or I met them online or whatever, I would actually ask this question. And then I kind of just stopped asking because it was always the same answer. But the most I probably about, I don't know, I didn't really keep track. I'd say ballpark about 40, 50, interactions with and asked this question, just, exactly like you said. And the most I ever got from one doctor was that they got 2 weeks, but most was like one class or 2 classes. That's kind of like the average type of thing. So anyway, I appreciate asking that.
Well, I'm hoping, Deepak, when you start to interview people in 20 years from now, I'm hoping that it is completely shifted because of the efforts of so many people, lifestyle medicine docs.
Yeah,
but
no,
also
you bring up another good point. And I love that it's becoming more, and there's more residency programs, and but transition takes time. Like we got to get like that's a whole new generation, right? Like we need essentially, depending how you want to define generation, but let's just leave it broad for the sake of this argument. We probably have 2 generations of doctors that need to be replaced with lifestyle medicine doctors to really move the needle, right? Like we essentially have this a curriculum for like 100 years, roughly the same, give or take. Obviously, we're learning new things, new technologies. So anyway, yes, it's moving in the right direction. So that's awesome. So I'd love to, I brought it up in your bio here about being the chief medical officer of the Kellen Foundation. Can you tell us what does the foundation do exactly? A little bit more about that, and what's its goal, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kellen Foundation started in 2007 as a 501c3 nonprofit, and it was really my answer, along with my co-founder, who is Eric Ruth, who's the chief executive officer of Kellen Foundation. He's the business side, I'm the medical side. It was kind of our answer to my frustration of what was happening in the medical system back at that time, where I really felt like I couldn't spend the time with patients to walk them through lifestyle change, health behavior change. I was seeing patients so infrequently, and I just felt like people were getting worse and worse, even though I was prescribing them medications and sending them for their lab tests. And I talked to Eric, who's been a family friend for a long time, and said that I was just, frustrated about how this was going. And he said, Meagan, why don't we just build the thing that patient referred to? And I was like, oh, that's a thought. So we kind of built it outside the medical system to take lifestyle medicine approaches or programming really into the community. So it's outside of the hospital or the clinic. Luckily, now over the past 17, 18 years, things are starting to circle around where hospitals and doctors' offices are interested in putting some of these things back into traditional healthcare settings. But back in the early 2000s, that was not the case. So we decided to launch Kellen Foundation as a 501c3 nonprofit, starting first with intensive therapeutic lifestyle change programs for either children. We really started with families in the beginning because childhood obesity is such a huge issue, and there's a lot of things that families will do to help their kids that maybe they might not do necessarily to help the adults. And so it's a great lever if everybody in the family is kind of working on it together. And so we started intervention programs to help families who had chronic disease, either risk factors or already had developed chronic disease in the kids or the adults, to help change their lifestyle as far as what they were eating, how physically active they were, stress, sleep, all those pillars of lifestyle medicine. And that worked out pretty well. But the problem is that when people left our intervention program, then they kind of struggled because they went back into the same environments, what I would call obesogenic environments that they were in before. So when they were with the group that was the intervention program, that was working relatively well. And then they kind of would fall back into their old habits because they didn't have that support. And Eric and I realized that if we wanted to really move the needle on health in the Lehigh Valley of Pennsylvania, which is where we live, that we needed to get out into the community and help change the social norms, really change what it means. Like we said, make the healthy choice the easy choice, make it so that your default option is the healthy choice, as opposed to what it was at that point. Your default option was probably not so much the healthy choice as far as like what food was available wherever you were or the physical activity kind of norms around you. So the next thing that we ended up doing is starting the Kellyn Schools program. And I had been and I still am actually, the doc on the Wellness Council for Eastern Area School District. And I went to the Wellness Council and said, hey, we want to start teaching the elementary school kids about healthy lifestyles. And they said, sure. So that was a great thing. We started in 3rd grade, and now we do 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, classroom by classroom, not in big auditorium things, because we don't feel like kids get a chance to really ask their questions and be as interactive with that. So we go into the classrooms and we teach about eating real food, like what counts as real food, what maybe is not as healthy that we eat, how do you grow some of your own real food, where can you find real food, like we do detective games and things like that. 4th grade, we do label reading. We call it being a food detective, and how do you analyze a label? And there's other healthy lifestyle stuff we talk about too, like sleep and physical activity, screen time, things like that. And then in 5th grade, we do eating out survival skills. So you're getting older, going to hang out with your friends. How can you make the healthiest choice wherever you are? Because you're not always going to be able to have the perfect choice, and that's okay. Just figure out like what's your best option where you are. And then all of that is wrapped around with the Garden as a Classroom program, where kids are able to grow some of their own real food in school gardens in their area and get their parents involved and everything. So that's the Kellyn Schools part. So we had the Kellyn Lifestyle Medicine, Kellyn Schools, and then we started doing Kellyn Kitchens, which it initially started out as like culinary medicine, culinary sessions out in the community, which we still do, where we would do like 6 to 8 week sessions where people could cook with us. So group, not really a cooking like demo, more people coming in and actually doing the cooking, and then we'd all sit and eat together, and it was good for social connection. It was great for people trying new things that they hadn't tried before. Parents would come up and they'd be like, I never thought my kid would eat this until they actually like saw them cooking it and eating it. But I think some of the most effective ways to get kids to change their eating habits is, 1, have them grow the food because they're going to want to try it, and 2, have them cook it because if they cook it, they want to try it.
I agree 100% with that.
So that was very effective with Kellyn Kitchens. And then we added to the culinary sessions, the like kind of cooking classes. We now have a commercial kitchen with some amazing chefs from the Culinary Institute of America who have been able to really like spearhead our plant forward cuisine, our prepared meals. So we kind of got into medically tailored meals and also just easy grab and go, convenient, healthy options that people would be able to. We don't all have time to cook all this great food like that is going to be the most nourishing and supportive. It's really easy to go get fast food, but it's not that easy to go get healthy fast food. And that's what Kellyn Kitchens tries to fill that gap here in the Lehigh Valley. And then the 4th pillar of what we do is the Kellyn Food Access, because we have 8 different areas of food insecurity, or what would be considered food deserts, in our Lehigh Valley area. So we started doing a mobile, basically healthy grocery store on wheels. That's a 27-foot trailer, take it into the neighborhoods, and we are at the same places every week for the same time, so people can count on us as the place that they can get their groceries. And we get produce from, we purchase it from local farms if it grows in the Lehigh Valley. If it doesn't, like avocados and bananas and mangoes and pineapple, we get it from a distributor. But the goal is to make sure that people can get enough of what they need on the market to be able to make their meals. So there's like grains as well, and beans and nuts and seeds and everything, as well as all the produce. Plus, we also have the prepared meals, the Kellyn Lifestyle Medicine meals on the market, so that people in places where they're going to be anyway, their neighborhood or their kids' school or a senior center, are able to make that healthy choice as accessible and convenient and affordable as possible, which has also allowed us to do things like healthy produce prescriptions with the healthcare systems or medically tailored meals. So being able to start to really get into that food as medicine approach, because everything on the market's healthy. So we don't have to worry about if somebody has a voucher for a medically tailored meal or for the fruit and vegetable prescription vouchers, anything that they choose is going to be healthy. So we don't have to be like, oh, this is only good for certain things in the store.
Right.
It's made it very accessible. So all of that together is what we call our healthy neighborhood immersion strategy, which is use an elementary school as the hub in a neighborhood and then put all these different healthy lifestyle resources into that area. The schools programs, the mobile market, the cooking, the intervention programs, and that helps shift the social norms and the choice architecture of those neighborhoods to make it easier for people to make that healthy choice.
So much good stuff there, Megan, for sure. Absolutely love what you're doing. Then I had so many questions, but you started answering all my questions as you're going. So that's
Oh,
awesome.
that's cool.
So one question I do have, two actually, but the first one is like, so obviously this is in your local area where you live, and you already mentioned there's, eight, I think you said eight sort of food deserts. The question I had originally, and maybe I think it's still maybe outstanding in my mind and maybe the audience's mind as well. Did you first start with like, or is the area in general a little bit more lower income or disadvantaged or whatever terminology is acceptable to use these days? I don't know. I can't keep track. But is that kind of like where you started, or is the whole area kind of a little bit of a lower economic, socioeconomic area? Or if you could just maybe touch on that for a second.
Yeah. So the Lehigh Valley is pretty diverse in both ethnicity and socioeconomic demographics. We are actually the third largest population center in Pennsylvania. First it's Philly, then it's Pittsburgh, then it's us. But the Lehigh Valley is spread out as opposed to one big city like the Philadelphia and Pittsburgh is. We are a bunch of cities and boroughs and towns and townships and whatever that have all sort of grown together to reach like 800,000 people. So there are some states that don't have the same number of people in them that the Lehigh Valley does. And as such, we have a range of in the cities like Easton, Bethlehem, and Allentown. That's where the majority of our food deserts are. And that is an area that can be very socioeconomically vulnerable. But then we also have areas that are very high income and high education. We have, I think, 10 different colleges and universities. I have to count them back up again. But in the Lehigh Valley, we've got a lot of great healthcare resources and company resources, like businesses that are global, like Crayola and some other Air Products, other big businesses. But then we also have a big portion of the population that's food insecure and we have a lot of chronic disease. We're not like the lowest or the worst in the United States, but we're definitely not the best. We're not up there at the top either. So when we look at what the Kellen Foundation program, the Healthy Neighborhood Immersion Strategy does, we really focus in mostly on those areas of food insecurity. Now, the school programs we try to do in the elementary schools throughout the entire Lehigh Valley as much as possible. So we're in 37 elementary schools, 9 different school districts, and reach about 10,000 students a year, because people not making the healthiest lifestyle choices, or perhaps choosing food that's not going to be the best for them, that's not really a food desert or lower socioeconomic issue. That's across the board.
Oh, yeah,
it's just
for sure.
it's just kind of like how expensive is the junk food that you're getting. Some people are going to, I'm not going to name any specific restaurants, but some people are going to restaurants and some people are going to the local, bodega. But teaching people across our entire community about healthy eating and physical activity and all that stuff we thought was really important. So school programs are everywhere, but the mobile market itself really focuses on places that don't have access to, or at least easy access to, a grocery store.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic. Obviously, other lifestyle medicine doctors around the country are going to be well aware of this, but there might be other, just let's call them regular family doctors, or just doctors in general who are not board certified lifestyle medicine, but they're hearing this, or they come across it. How can they start their own Kellen Foundation, or want to implement some of these things in their own communities? Because you're right, these are across the world, and let's just focus on the U.S. for sake of argument here. How would they go about it? Can they reach out to you? Is there some resources that help you guys get started at the beginning? How can we help spread the message?
Well, they could definitely reach out to us. And the best way to reach us is just info@kellyn.org, which is info like INFO, at Kellyn, which is KELLYN.org. But I would encourage people to think about, what are your relationships in your sphere of influence? Because all of this depends on relationships. It's not like some sort of wonder drug or some sort of like new procedure. This is a process over time. And the way it works over time, or the way it works best anyway, is not just education, like come in for a health fair or, give out a handout. It's really helping people shift and communities shift over time. So when Kellen Foundation does help kind of act as a consultant sometimes to help communities figure out what are their resources and the people that are engaged already that could kind of bond together and help shift and make this healthy change in their communities. And some of the places that are usually good to start are either in the schools, or in faith communities or other community center locations where people are already gathering anyway. So if there's a tribe there already, start to access that tribe. And it could be something like a school garden program, or it could be something like a 6-week session at a community center that has a kitchen that you're going to be able to start to do some whole food plant forward cooking classes with people. It could be starting to bring together people once a month for a walk and a healthcare talk, or a talk on a health topic, but start small. Like what we are now after 17 years of Kellen Foundation is not at all what we were when we started. And the thing that I think is most important is start where you are with the people that you already have relationships with. Build something that's sustainable, whether it's cooking, whether it's a garden program, whether it's working with kids either after school or in school, working at a senior center and helping to get people together for social connection. And when that is successful, more people in your community are going to start to be interested. They'll be like, wow, that's really cool what you're doing. And it brings more people into your tent in a way to expand out further and do other things. So our trajectory was intervention program, because I'm a doc, and that's something that I, was able to put together and had the connections to be able to get referrals and all that. Then we did schools, then we did cooking, then we did food access. That may not be the kind of pattern or the roadmap for another community. For them, it might be cooking first, or it might be food access first. Who knows? So I think you have to assess where you are, what your relationships are, and then use the strengths that you already have with people that you already are connected with. And most important is stay in the communities that you start to serve, because so many of our under-resourced communities are used to the fact if people get a grant, they come in, they do something for 2 years or something, they get data, they leave, it doesn't continue on. And then that, first of all, doesn't usually make a huge impact, but it also starts to make people distrustful of you coming back in again. So the goal is to not try to do something so big that you can't continue to financially sustain it. Start smaller and then grow from there. Like we started with 1 school district, but now we're in 9 because we were able to, over time, show the impact.
Right. I love it. And earlier, Meagan gave the website for the Kellen Foundation. We'll have all of Meagan's links and everything in the show notes down below. So don't worry if you didn't catch that, everyone. So Meagan, just a couple last questions here as we sort of wrap it up here. So obviously you're a doctor. I'm into health. This is not a health podcast per se, but I do like to ask my guests, what does your morning routine look like, or what's a non-negotiable in regards to your health that you do daily?
So I would say non-negotiable for me is daily. So I do many different things. I don't have one day the same as the next day, because I have all these different jobs that I do. And so some of them may be starting early in the morning and some of them may be, later on at night, or, doing night shifts. I always do though, is when I wake up that I can have my cup of tea and pause, drink my tea, kind of get my head together about what the day is going to be like, and not have it that you wake up and it's like the starting gun goes off and you're running and you're stressed from the very beginning. So I really try to have that kind of somewhat relaxed morning routine of drink the tea, catch up on what's going on in the world. I actually like to read a couple of Substack people's pods or posts, I guess you'd say, or, check up on the New York Times or something, but just kind of not let my brain wake up, because I'm not a morning person at all. Some of the other things I really try to put into my day every day is physical activity. If I don't get a chance to do something physically active, I feel sluggish. My brain doesn't work as well, so physical activity is really important. And one of the other things that I focus on for my own well-being, so I don't know if this is a daily thing exactly so much, but I try to batch cook food that I am going to be able to grab and go, because life is pretty crazy busy for me. So I make a huge pot of oatmeal with raisins and craisins and apples and things like that in whatever day of the week that I have time. And it'll be enough to get me through 5 or 6 days of breakfast. So all I have to do is scoop it out, throw a little bit of fig-infused balsamic vinegar on it, heat it up, maybe put some walnuts and some blueberries on top of it. And that's faster than going through a drive-through, but I have the type of food that I need to sustain me. similarly for dinners and things, I try to make sure that there's always stuff in my food always stuff in my refrigerator that I think of as emergency food. Like you come home, you're starving. What are you going to eat? I want to make sure that there's always stuff like that around that does not take me down the road of like, oh, I'm just going to go order a pizza. I love pizza, but I do not want to have pizza all the time.
I love pizza too. It's my favorite food. And though we try and mitigate how often we have that.
Well, I'm the same way. I call it my kryptonite because if I smell it,
oh yeah, it is.
It is.
And Meagan, you don't know this about me because again, we just met today. But I used to be, I would have been classified as morbidly obese at 18 years old. I was over 100 pounds heavier than I am now. Pizza was my favorite food then. It is still my favorite food, but got to manage the workload for sure. I just want one thing. You just triggered something in my mind. I'm totally going off topic here because everyone who's a long time listening to the show knows that's what I do. You mentioned the fig infused balsamic vinegar. Here's a fantastic thing. If you have a really high quality, vanilla ice cream, a flavorful fruit infused balsamic vinegar drizzled on vanilla ice cream. So you get that sweetness and you get the tartness and it's a perfect combination. I like a pomegranate balsamic vinegar myself. So
have you ever tried to do that with instead of the vanilla? And I think vanilla would be fabulous from the ice cream, but have you ever tried it with frozen bananas and turn that into an ice cream? There's this, I'm not going to use any but there's a machine that you can put frozen bananas and frozen
inside baseball here, folks. My mother-in-law and my kids and my nieces and nephews, they'll do that in the summertime. They'll make banana ice cream.
Yeah.
They usually add like peanut butter or something to it. We've never tried the balsamic, so I'm gonna think about that one.
Yeah.
And try that. So
we do it with the bananas and put in some berries as well, like a strawberry. So like a strawberry banana or something, turn the ice cream or the frozen fruit, like cream, whatever.
Yeah.
And then drizzle the balsamic vinegar on top of that and throw on some walnuts or some almonds. Good stuff.
Awesome. There you got some things to try there, folks. Now, Meagan, there's an event coming up, so it'll be by the time this show's released, there'll be some lead time ahead of time before this event. It's kind of local to the area, so it might not be for everyone. But could you just really very quickly explain this event that I think you're speaking at and you'd like to invite everyone to?
Yeah, so it's called the Lehigh Valley Veg Stock. We've been doing it for years now, and it's veg stock kind of as a play on words because it's veg stock because we cook with so much veg stock. Like vegetable stock is a big thing that we use at Kellen Foundation, but it's also veg stock, kind of like wood stock, because it is a live music event all day. Actually, this background that you see behind me, the creek, the whole veg stock event takes place on a rail trail along this Bushkill Creek in Tatamy. And we have live music all day. We have lifestyle medicine speakers that are free and open to the public. So some really amazing pioneers that'll come and talk about how you can live your longest and healthiest life. We also have all these phenomenal whole food plant-based vendors, crafts, things for the kids to do, pumpkin painting. The whole point of it, really, we usually get a couple thousand people a year that come to the event. And the whole point is to celebrate and have that social connection while still actually having, really healthy options around you, as opposed to so many festivals are wonderful, but they might be like Bacon Fest, or they might be like Oktoberfest, and then you get there and there's really almost nothing healthy to eat. And there's not really, the things to do are maybe not the ones that are going to nourish and nurture your health as much. So we started doing Lehigh Valley Veg Stock as a way that families could get together and enjoy a healthy harvest festival in October. It's going to be October 12th, and still have a great time with music, speakers, and phenomenal food.
Awesome. So if you're anywhere near that area, definitely go check it out. And by the time you're hearing this, if you're hearing this live, you should have a couple months to organize yourself. So last question here, Meagan. Is there a last words of wisdom or golden nugget you'd like to leave the audience with?
I think that my most important words of wisdom would be to surround yourself with people who are trying to do the same sort of things that you are in regard to their health, because I feel like lifestyle behaviors are contagious and we are really likely to do the things that the people around us are doing. And that doesn't mean that you completely scratch your friend group and, get rid of your family or something. It's not that as much, but first, sometimes you have to be the lead and make some changes, and people might say, why are you doing that? Why don't you eat this? Or why are you, going out to do this physical activity? And I found it works best, at least for me and for a lot of my people who have been participants in my program, to just not fight back about that. Just say, this is something I'm trying right now. See, it's working well for me right now. We'll see, not saying I'm never, ever again going to do X, whatever, but right now I'm not. But try to find and seek out other people who want to do the same sort of thing. So whether it's physical activity, going out for hikes or going for walks, or, meeting at a yoga class, whether it's people who are trying to shift to healthier food options and not necessarily, going out and having the bar food or the fast food as much, it really helps, because willpower fails us at the time we need it most. It's like we have to put structures around us to make it as easy as possible for those healthy habits to stick. And having other people that are your allies in that, I think, makes a big difference. So look around for your allies and try to connect and spend a lot of time with them.
Yeah, I love that you said that as your answer, because I say that to my clients all the time. Everyone's heard this. You're the average of the 5 people, and it's always in some context of business or money making or something. Like, what about your health? Like, nobody ever thinks that way. So I'm glad you shared that. Awesome. So, Meagan, I really appreciate you being on the podcast today. It was good. Again, took some time for us to connect. We finally did. So I love that we were able to sit down, and obviously some very similar thoughts on many things. And we could probably riff for a couple more hours on certain things, but alas, we don't have time. So again, thank you for being on the Deepak Saini Show.
Oh, it was my pleasure. This was great. I agree. We could talk forever. So, maybe another year or two, we'll come up with something more fun to talk about. What do you think?
Absolutely. We definitely have you for round 2 at some point in the future. So awesome. So everyone, I'm going to throw it to J23, who's going to play us out with some music. Also, don't forget to check out today's show sponsor. And that'll be right after this, the interview ends. You can hear about the show sponsor. And again, everyone, thank you for listening to the Deepak Saini Show. Remember, exceptional results for the exceptional you. Till next time. This episode is brought to you by Optimizers. Magnesium Breakthrough. This is a product I've been using and our family's been using for, 4 years already. What I love about it, it has 7 different forms of magnesium in it. All the forms that your body needs for all 400 processes that your body needs magnesium for. Most magnesium supplements have 1 form and usually a crummy form of magnesium. This has all 7 forms that your body needs. So click the link and get at least 10% off. Sometimes there's specials and you even get more. So check out Optimizers Magnesium Breakthrough.
Podcast produced by the Minted Green Company